I'm Katie Allen with K-State Research and Extension, and with me today is Mary Lee Chin, who is a nutrition and health consultant and a registered dietitian speaking at Kansas State University. And you're speaking on the Sustainable American Dinner Plate. So let's just start off talking about the word sustainable is thrown around a lot in food production today. How would you define sustainable to consumers and what they need to know about sustainable food?
Well, sustainable is one of those buzzwords today that people are very concerned about, and they want to know that their food is grown so it's nutritious and healthy and safe, but at the same time they want to make sure it's grown in a manner that does not harm the environment. There are many different definitions of sustainable, but one of the most common ones comes from the United Nations. And in general, it means meeting the food needs and fiber needs of people for today without harming the environment. And not only for today, but into the future too, so that we protect the environment for future generations. Another factor is involving the people who produce the food, so that when they produce the food, that they produce it in a manner that they can make a living wage, that they are protected, it's not harmful to them. And then going along the food production line, it also means that the food that is produced is for people who can afford it.
And from a nutritionist perspective, a lot of labels these days show consumers different things about food and how it was raised. And how do you explain to consumers about the nutrition in their food, regardless of how it was raised and those labels that it bears, whether it's GMO-free or organic or natural as some examples?
The thing to remember is that many of those labels on food have no standardization. So if something is labeled organic, that is certified and there are standards for that. But if something is labeled local or natural, there is no standardization. It can mean anything. When you take a look at local, for example, produced in the immediate community to being trucked from within the state or being brought in from the region. So there is no standardization. When it comes to nutrition labeling, it tells you the amount of calories, carbohydrate, fat, and protein, vitamins, minerals, things that are important for nutritional health. What it does not tell you is how the food was produced. So labeling, according to the FDA, means the actual content of what's in the food, not how it was produced. For something like genetically modified foods, for example, the FDA says that the foods produced through genetic modification are substantially the same as their conventional counterparts, so they do not have to be labeled. If they differ, however, for example, a tomato that might be higher in the antioxidant lycopene, then it would have to be labeled.
Knowing the challenge of having to feed 9 billion people by 2050, we're hearing that a lot these days. Do you think that we're going to have to raise foods in different ways in order to meet that requirement to feed that many people?
I think you've really hit the mark with that one. We have so many people arguing these days, which is better, which is worse, which is good for the environment, which is bad for the environment. My perspective is that we have to use the best practices of every single type of food production method and agricultural technology that suits the system, that suits the producer, and suits the eventual consumer in order to produce food for that number of people. A lot of people want to buy organic. That is great. It produces nutritious foods. It does have advantages in terms of biodiversity and soil health. A lot of people are supportive of biotechnology or genetically modified foods. That can produce higher yields, for example, or pest and insect resistance, or meet climate changes like drought-tolerant or flood-tolerant rice. So that because of the different agricultural challenges and consumers' wants and desires, we need to harness every single type of that technology to produce the food that is appropriate for the consumer and for the producer.
Again, that's Mary Lee Chin, who's visiting Kansas State University, talking about the sustainable American dinner plate and addressing some of the challenges and opportunities in the current food system. I'm Katie Allen reporting for K-State Research and Extension.